The last moving box slid across the polished hardwood, emitting a painful, screeching sound that echoed through the empty apartment. Finn dropped the cardboard onto the floor and immediately collapsed onto the nearest sofa cushion, throwing an arm dramatically over his eyes. "I am officially one with this couch," he declared, his voice muffled by the worn fabric. "Don't move me for at least a decade." Chloe stood over him, dusting her hands off on her jeans, a small, triumphant smile playing on her lips. She was electric with the energy of new beginnings. 10 years is the minimum commitment for this lease. "So you better get comfortable," she replied, picking up an empty water bottle. They had known each other for 10 years, a decade measured in shared emergency pizza orders, terrible dating stories, and inside jokes that had become their own secret language. Now, for the first time, they were officially roommates. It was strictly a financial and logistical arrangement. She needed to save money. He needed someone responsible to ensure the bills got paid. Just friends sharing rent was the mantra they had both recited to every well-meaning, skeptical person in their lives. But every time their eyes met across the chaotic, box-filled living room, the certainty of that phrase felt a little less solid. Chloe started tackling the kitchen, methodically unpacking the glassware. Finn watched her from the couch. She was all focus and sharp efficiency, her dark hair pulled back in a severe, functional bun that he knew would be messy and loose by midnight. He loved watching her work. The way her brow furrowed slightly in concentration, the precise angle at which she tucked things away. "Need help with the heavy stuff, roomie?" Finn asked, pushing himself up, feigning effort. "You already did the heavy stuff," Chloe countered, not looking up. "Now just supervise like you do best." He walked toward her, the space between them closing naturally, as if pulled by an invisible, familiar gravity. Finn reached for a box labeled MUGS at the exact same moment Chloe did. Their fingers brushed. It was a fleeting contact, barely a static shock, but it made Chloe snatch her hand back and Finn momentarily freeze. The air, already thick with dust and cardboard, suddenly felt charged with something else, something heavier. "Sorry," Finn mumbled, quickly grabbing the box. "Mugs, right. Very important mugs." That evening, they ordered takeout and sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by their life's accumulated clutter. "So house rules," Chloe said, unfolding a napkin with excessive care. "My bathroom is my sanctuary. Do not, under any circumstances, use my expensive shampoos." Finn laughed, a deep, easy sound that always made her heart flutter. Duly noted. "My rule is simple. Tell me before you bring anyone home." She stabbed a piece of noodles. "Obviously, you better extend the same courtesy, of course."
House.
"Though my dating life has been historically tragic, you know this," he said, gesturing dramatically with his chopsticks. He always downplayed his appeal. Chloe knew for a fact that Finn could charm the paint off a wall if he felt like it. "Speaking of tragic dates, did Mark from accounting ever call you back?" Finn asked, genuinely curious. Chloe sighed. Mark was fine. Too eager to use the word soulmate on the first date, though. Alarm bells. Finn leaned back against the wall, his eyes thoughtful. "You need someone who gets the slow burn, the long game." "I need someone who isn't standing 5 feet away from me eating my Chinese food," she retorted quickly, deflecting the sudden seriousness. They had nearly crossed this line before, once, 3 years ago, after a disastrous New Year's Eve party. Finn had been heartbroken over some girl named Anya. Chloe had been nursing a tequila headache. They ended up on his sofa, bodies tangled, talking until dawn. A hand had lingered, a gaze had held too long. Days had held too long. Chloe had jumped up, declared they were too good as friends to risk it, and fled. The unspoken rule had been cemented that morning. They valued the stability of their friendship over the volatility of romance. And for 3 years they had strictly adhered to it, building a wall of comfortable denial around themselves. Next night, they hosted a small impromptu housewarming. It was mostly their mutual friends. Liam, always the blunt one, raised his glass. To Finn and Chloe, the greatest love story that hasn't happened yet. The room laughed. Finn and Chloe exchanged a look of practiced annoyance. "We are just friends, Liam," Finn stated firmly, maybe a little too loudly. A platonic powerhouse. Chloe saw him talking to Maya, a sharp, witty designer from her office. They were leaning close, Finn's signature charm clearly in play. She felt a strange, unpleasant clenching sensation in her chest. It felt like ... betrayal? Oh, that was ridiculous. It's just the stress of the move, she told herself, swiftly moving to refill the chip bowl. Later, standing alone by the kitchen counter, Finn found her. "Maya's pretty great, huh?" he asked casually. Chloe nodded stiffly. "Very smart. Do you two would make a cute couple? Go ask for her number." Finn studied her face. "Do you really think so? You're not just saying that to push me towards someone else? Why would I do that?" she challenged, her voice tight. "I'm your friend. I want you to be happy." His eyes were dark, searching. "No, you want me to be happy, Chloe. The question is, who do you want me to be happy with?" Oh, question hung there, impossibly heavy, until a crash from the living room broke the tension. Someone had knocked over a lamp. They both rushed to deal with the chaos, and the moment, thankfully, was lost. After the guests left, a comfortable, exhausted silence settled between them. Chloe was wiping down the granite counter. Finn was stacking plastic cups. "That was fun," Chloe murmured, her voice laced with exhaustion. "You know, Liam has a point," Finn said unexpectedly, his back still turned to her. Chloe froze. "About what? The lamp? Yes, he owes us a new one?" "No. About us." He finally turned, leaning against the doorway. "There is no us, Finn. There's you and me, the platonic power duo, the budget-conscious roommates. But don't you ever wonder," he pressed, stepping closer, holding her gaze. "Wonder what? What would happen if we ruined the best thing we have for a messy temporary flame?" "No, I don't." Her voice was firm, but her hands were shaking, gripping the damp sponge. He looked disappointed, maybe even hurt, and the sight was unbearable. "Right? Just friends. My mistake." The next day, a storm rolled in a violent midsummer clash of thunder and rain. The power flickered and died, plunging the entire apartment into a suffocating darkness. Chloe hated thunderstorms. She hated them with a childish, irrational fear she had never outgrown. She was in her room, trying to read by the glow of her phone, when a massive crack of thunder rattled the windows. A small, involuntary sound of distress escaped her. Immediately, the door creaked open. "Chloe? You okay?" Finn's voice was low, concerned. "Fine, just..." Startled, she lied, her chest tight. He walked in and sat heavily on the edge of her bed, the mattress sinking beneath his weight. "Don't lie. I've known you since high school. You still hold your breath during the loudest ones?" He reached out in the darkness and found her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. It was a purely friendly, protective gesture. But sitting so close, with the sounds of the world shut out and the air thick with rain and shared breath, the line dissolved. Chloe turned, facing him, her body drawn to the warmth and safety he provided. "Finn," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the drumming rain. His free hand reached up, gently pushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm tired of lying," he confessed, his thumb tracing a slow, deliberate path across her knuckles. "We made a rule," Chloe insisted, the words a desperate, final defense. "We promised not to ruin this. What if this is only half of what it's supposed to be?" he challenged, leaning in until she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. The proximity was a heavy, intoxicating weight. It felt inevitable, predetermined by their long, complicated history. Their lips were inches apart. He hesitated, giving her the final, terrifying choice. Chloe closed her eyes, fear winning out over desire. "No, Finn, we can't." He pulled back instantly, his hand dropping away from hers as if burned. The silence that followed was worse than the loudest thunder. It felt like a rift had opened in the room. "Understood," he said, his voice flat, devoid of the usual easy charm. He stood up without another word. He retreated to his own room, and the door closed with a gentle, yet final, click. For the next 3 days, they existed as polite, distant strangers in their shared space. They communicated through hurried texts about the electric bill and used the kitchen only when the other was safely in their room. Hello. The tension was suffocating. Their carefully constructed wall of friendship was crumbling, and they hadn't even crossed the line. Chloe felt the profound, chilling loss of him, the quick wit, the easy laughter, the effortless support. She realized that she hadn't protected their friendship. She had simply starved it. On the 4th morning, Chloe woke to the smell of burnt toast and the sound of Finn singing off-key. was making breakfast. When she walked into the kitchen, the sunlight streaming in, he was at the counter. Next to her plate was a small folded piece of paper. She picked it up. In his messy handwriting it read, "The answer to the just friends, right? Question is, no. I'm choosing the full story, even if it's messy. Your call, Chloe." Chloe's breath caught in her throat. She looked up at him. He was standing by the stove, avoiding her gaze, his expression vulnerable. He turned down the heat on the skillet. "Look, I know I risked the whole thing," he said quietly. "But being just friends when I feel this way is the messiest thing of all." Chloe walked the short distance across the kitchen, her heart finally abandoning its years of caution. She reached out, placing her hand on his arm. She didn't need to say the word, not when her eyes were finally telling the complete truth. The silence was broken not by a word, but by the quiet, absolute certainty of a kiss that was 10 years overdue. Watch the full drama unfold. Comment, like, share, and subscribe to Storycraft Studio.